Prime Minister, I want to start talking to you about the economy because that's what people at home are really thinking about. Liz Truss told me in September she was prepared to be unpopular to push through her economic plan. Are you?
I think I demonstrated over the summer that I'm prepared to be honest with the country about the challenges we face and to make the difficult decisions that are required to fix them. So I think people can be reassured that what they'll get from me is honesty about challenges, and I am prepared to do difficult things. I did that as Chancellor, and of course the government is going to do what's right for the long-term interests of the country.
You accept what you're going to do this week will be unpopular?
Well, no, I actually think that what people will see on Thursday is that the government is being upfront with people about the challenges that we face. It's right that we get a grip of inflation. It's right that we limit the increases in mortgage rates, and that means having public finances that are more sustainable and that command the confidence of international markets. That's ultimately going to be good for people at home. But what people will also see is that the way we've gone about that is fair, is compassionate, and I want to be judged on that.
But the fact is your party is now very unpopular. You're over 20 points behind in the polls. It might get worse this week after you announce these tax rises and spending cuts. We now know that the Conservative Party's economic experiment under Liz Truss blew an enormous £30 billion black hole in the public finances. This is, I think, like the modern Tory party's Black Wednesday. If you want to move on for this, don't you need to start by saying sorry to the British people about what's just passed?
On the steps of Downing Street, when I first became Prime
Minister,
mistakes
were made.
I said mistakes were made, and I said part of the reason that I became Prime Minister was to fix them.
No one's apologised.
And what we have seen actually is much more stability in the UK's financial position in terms of what the UK is paying to borrow money, what's happened to the pound. That's a good and welcome development. It's now right that the government delivers on those expectations. But I would say now, but the UK situation has stabilised. We're here talking to other leaders here in Indonesia at the G20. These are global challenges. The legacy of COVID...
I'm going to interrupt there because there was also a UK-specific component, as you know, in terms of what happened. No one apologised. People can't pay their mortgages potentially. People are struggling with food bills. No one has taken responsibility. Will you now say to the British people, let them say, I'm sorry they messed up, I'm going to try and fix it. You said mistakes were made, but no one's really taken responsibility.
Beth, I think it's really important that people understand actually what's happened since I became Prime Minister and over the last few weeks is we've actually seen all those UK-specific factors in terms of how much we borrow, what's happened to the pound. Those have all considerably improved. And what we're now facing are the same challenges that many of the countries here are facing as well. And I don't think it's right to ignore those because energy prices are a phenomenon that many countries are grappling with. Inflation right now is higher in Germany and in Italy.
It seems to me, if I may interrupt, it seems to me that you're more worried about hurting Liz Truss's feelings than you are about the country and people being quite rightly furious with the Conservative Party because of what has just come to pass. Do you acknowledge that at least?
I think I spent the summer talking about the challenges that our country faces, talking about what I thought was required to grapple with those and fix them, to build a foundation which we could provide jobs and growth and prosperity for people over time. So I think that people know where I stand on all these issues. And now that I'm Prime Minister, I'm going to make sure that we deliver on that.
To put this to bed, though, can you just say you are sorry about what happened? I know it wasn't your doing, but you are now Prime Minister, you do lead the party, and it is the Tory party that did this.
And I've acknowledged from the steps of Downing Street in the first statement that I made to the country an acknowledgement that mistakes were made.
But you don't want to apologise, I get it.
What I want to do now is fix them.
But just to be clear, you don't want to say sorry to poor people about their mortgages, can't sell their houses, can't afford inflation hikes.
What people grappling with inflation or indeed mortgages want to know is that we've got a plan that will limit the increase in mortgage rates, that will bring inflation down. And I think people can be reassured that we will put a plan together that will do that, and that's what you'll see on Thursday.
And just on compassion and fairness, is it fair to lift taxes for everyone?
I think the Chancellor has been very clear about the challenges we face. It's right that we're upfront and honest with the country about the scale of the challenge we face. But what we've also said is that the way we go about that will have fairness and compassion at the heart of those decisions. Is it fair to lift taxes
for everyone?
I'm not going to comment. Obviously, you wouldn't expect me to comment.
I'm not. I'm asking about the principle. It's not. No, he said taxes will go up for everyone. Was Jeremy Hunt wrong?
And what you'll see from the Chancellor on Thursday is an approach to solving this problem, which I believe most people actually, at the end of the day, will recognise as being both fair and compassionate in its approach.
Okay.
And
I need to move
it's
on,
just 2 days, and we'll see.
Okay, I'm running out of time. You talked tough on China during the leadership contest, branding the country as the largest threat to Britain and the world's security and prosperity this century. Is that your view now as Prime Minister, or have you changed your mind on China?
I'm very clear that China poses a systemic challenge to both our values and our interests, and it represents the single biggest straight threat to our economic security, and that's why it's right that we take the steps that are necessary to protect ourselves against that.
Is it a threat or a challenge, though?
Well, it is a systemic challenge to our values and interests. It's also a very significant threat to our economic security, which is why it's right that we take steps to protect ourselves against that.
Do you think you can have a collaborative relationship with President Xi?
I think our approach to China is one that is very similar to our allies, whether that's America, Australia and Canada, all countries that I'm talking about exactly this issue with while we're here at the G20 summit. And I think it's an indisputable fact of the global economy that China is a big part of it. And if we want to solve big global challenges like public health, like Russia and Ukraine, fixing the global economy, or indeed climate change, it's important to have a dialogue and to engage with China as part of solving those challenges.
And just finally, Prime Minister, you said to me last night you were hopeful you'd be the first Prime Minister to meet President Xi for a few years for any British Prime Minister. Are you going to meet him?
I'm hopeful that I can. I mean, this, as I said, I think it's important that we engage with people to try and tackle some of these shared challenges, and I'm here to talk to people, and that's what I hope is possible.
Prime Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.